Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Bendigo Tech School's live streaming program. Sorry about the delay there. No good excuse on this one. It looked like YouTube was just having some issues getting some live streaming actually buffering and sending across. So let me just double check that it's all working. Alright, Yep, my audios are coming through good. Excellent. I've got my display off. I can turn it back on. Hi. Mainly I'm trying to kind of limit that bandwidth a little bit. Yesterday seemed to be a little bit constrained, so I've turned off the webcam to see if that'll help our bandwidth out a little bit, but we should be okay. So, in today's session, so these are shorter sessions. So what we're doing with these is the whole point is we're trying to give you a little project to do and see how you go over the this afternoon, and then we'll touch base tomorrow and you can ask me any questions, if you had any help, if you had any difficulties. That's what these sessions are for. So really kind of short, sharp introductions, giving you a project, and then you're going to work on that project in the remainder of the day and then come back to me tomorrow with any questions. So let me just make sure everyone is okay. I'm just going to switch over here. Wonderful. All right, so what I've got for today is a simple one, and one a lot of people have been asking for, is simply doing some editing in Photoshop and removing people, touching up images, you know, those kind of things. So nice and quick and easy ways to do that. So I'm going to show you the long way first. I'm going to show you, the manual way, the way that I normally do it. And then I'm going to let you go and see how you go with doing this on your photos. And then tomorrow when we do a recap, another short little recap, I'll see if you have any questions and if you need any help, but also I'll show you some quicker ways to do it. Photoshop has a whole bunch of inbuilt tools to kind of automate the process. They've got some machine learning now as well, where you can actually kind of upload your photo to the cloud and a bunch of computers will sit there and crunch some numbers and actually automatically remove parts from it for you, which is kind of cool. But I don't want to do that. I want to show you the manual, kind of the old school way. So let us get started. I'm just going to bring this down here. I'm going to start with this image. All right. And I will open this with Photoshop. Okay, so here's the image that we're going to work with today. So first up, when you open it up in Photoshop, so if you haven't used Photoshop before, I'll give you a real quick rundown of the layout. I'm just making sure everything's working over here. Cool. I'll give you a quick rundown of the layout. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pause my playback just to help the buffering. I'm just going to reset my workspace. So I've talked about this a few times. So with your workspace, this is your workspace here. This is what you're working in. And depending on what you're doing, if you're doing photo editing, if you're doing web editing, you can change the workspace to suit. So if I go up here and I go to workspace, excuse me, and I go say graphic and web, you'll see it'll change that layout to suit what you're doing. So this graphic and web layout is really more for, you know, typography and doing kind of posters and those kind of things. So you'll see it's got a lot of the font options up there and paragraph options front and center. And some of the tools have changed as well. So if I go back to my workspace and I go to photography, here we go here. So again, you'll see some of the tools have changed slightly. They're all still there. All the tools that you see here are always here. But what it's doing is it's just kind of rearranging your toolbar here to have the tools that you'll use for that job front and center. Okay, so you would have noticed now I have a lot of these healing tools that have appeared because it knows that I'm going to be working on photos. Okay, so the patch tool and the content aware move tool and stuff like that. So that's what I would suggest doing. Again, changing your workspace to suit your environment, or if you're just kind of like used to where everything is, if you just go to reset essentials, okay, this is kind of like the basic setup. This is the setup that you normally see. But for today, I'm going to go into my workspace and I'm going to go to photography because that's what we're doing. All right, so you can see my image here at 100%. It's not a massive image. It's a pretty small photo, okay? Again, this kind of stuff like editing photos and touching up photos. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink because I ran home with my son. Touching up photos is, you know, you want to have the best photo you can. The more information that you've got in that photo, the better, okay? Because then you can do a lot more work with it. So I'm just going to zoom in here. So I'm just going to grab my photo. Oops. I'm back into Mac and Windows and all my keys. My brain just has a while to switch back across. Control C. All right. Let me just undo that. There we go. Okay, so I'm on a Windows machine today, so my brain has to be in Windows mode. So Control Plus. So we can see as we zoom in here, it's a pretty low resolution picture. All right, as I zoom in, you can see the pixels starting to come through. Sorry about my fans and my laptops have been. I had to do some work on my laptop a while ago. The hard drive kind of died, and ever since then, it's just it's never been happy. It's always been really loud. But anyway, so we can see as we move in here. Got to do Control and not Command. We can start to see. Obviously, we can start to see the pixels here, but we can still fix this photo up, even though it's not a great resolution photo. We'll still spend some time in try and fix this up a little bit. So down here are our tools for editing. Now, like I've mentioned a few times before, if you see a little arrow, excuse me, if you see a little arrow, it means if you hold that down, there are more options there. Okay, so obviously these brushes here don't have that because I've changed my toolbar to be my editing toolbar, so it's put most of the tools there. But again, if you hold that down, you'll see there's other options there. Okay, so we'll have a look at a few here. I'm going to show you some manual tools to get the job done. So first up, we have the spot healing tool. And this is really designed to do spots or like small areas. Okay, so for example, let's zoom in here. And we'll go to this deer, and we'll get rid of one of the spots. So you can see there, that white circle is my brush. So I'm just going to do the brackets to kind of make it a bit smaller. And I'm just going to paint over there. And there we go. All right, so I'm just going to paint over these spots here. And it will get rid of them. Okay, you can start to see a little blurriness around there. You don't want to use any of these tools too much. Okay, all the tools here are, you know, you want to use them sparingly. There we go there. So what this is doing, if I zoom back in closer again, is what it's doing here is when I click on that area, you see it goes grey, and then it's going to sample all of the colours around that space and kind of redraw it to match. Okay, so you can see it's got the same kind of highlights, the same shadows, and I can get away with quite a lot. Like I can do a fair bit here. After a while, you'll notice that you will start to see a bit of repetitiveness, but you'll notice there even that it kind of picked up that light that we had there as well. So you can really paint with this. But you don't want to do too much. So you notice here, as I try to get rid of those spots, it's going to take that white in as well. So as we kind of go through, you can very quickly clean up our deer here. So now it's a spotless deer. You can go over areas that you've done too. So you may need to go over an area a couple of times to get it how you want it. I'm just clicking there to kind of get it how you want it. All right, so control, sorry. So again, my brain's still in back mode. So then as we move out there, the spots are gone. Now, I mean, I can see there, I can kind of tell that's had some work done. But of course, we know that because we were working in that area. So people might not be able to tell, especially when you print these photos too. So a lot of what we're looking at here is for maybe photos for your website or the school newsletter. So you probably won't notice a lot of these differences when it's printed or on a, on a screen. So let's get rid of these spots as well. All right. So it's pretty easy. And it's done. Okay, so that one is the up here. That is your healing brush. Okay, so down here we have the healing brush tool. All right, so we have a couple of options. We have the spot healing, and then we have the healing brush tool. This is kind of more like a paintbrush now. So with this one, if we go over, let's have a look up here. If we go here, whoops. What this wants you to do, I'll zoom in a bit. What this wants you to do is this wants you to pick an area as like the source area, and it will use that as its reference point. So whereas the spot healing brush is kind of automatically doing that, it's doing it for you. The actual healing brush here requires you to pick an area to work from. So how can I show that? Let's go here. All right, let's get rid of this guy's wedding ring. Okay, I don't know. Let's go over here, and I'm gonna move down here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press the Alt key to pick an area. Oops, again, my brain's in Mac mode here. So pick an area, and then you'll notice there, you probably won't see it here, you'll notice there you can kind of see, if I put it over the pants, you can kind of see that area that it referenced from, okay? So kind of like take a snapshot of an area over here, and then you can kind of start to paint with it, okay? And there we go. So it's a different tool. It's probably not as effective on doing smaller things. It's handy if you're doing a big area. So let's just say you had some grass. Let's go back to that grass actually. So if I wanted to kind of extend the grass a little bit, and I wanted to get rid of that bucket, this is a better tool for doing something like that. So if I hold the Alt key here, I increase the size, I can start to paint in there, okay? Notice how it's taking the color of the orange as well, which is pretty clever. Okay, so it's trying to get a bit of that orange there. Obviously I don't want the orange, so I'll just go over it a few times. That's handy if you were, let's say you're trying to get rid of some lights and there's like a street light, or there's some color over here that's reflecting some color. This way it'll kind of hide it a lot better because it actually gets that color source as well, which is really cool. Okay, so you can see it's starting to kind of get those genes in there as well. So it's not good when you're trying to get details close up, but as a tool, okay, you can see there we've kind of got rid of that bucket. Okay, and again, I'm flying through this today. I'm doing this really, really fast. We would spend a lot more time doing this. Obviously, if you were trying to touch up a photo, we'll get rid of the kid zipper. We'll do the same thing. So Alt key, select an area. I might just make this a bit smaller now, and then we can kind of draw over that. And you'll notice it tries to. adjust the shadows on the fly. There we go. So again, it's not perfect, but it's a real quick way to kind of start getting rid of some areas on that photo there. All right, so that's another quick way. So let's show a couple more here before I let you actually have a go at this project. So then down here we have the patch tool. Okay, so this replaces an area from another part of the image. So if we go to the patch tool, I'm going to select here, go to patch, right, and then up here you can see you've got a bunch of patterns to choose from, or you can actually use an image as well. So you can basically select an image and then start to create these kind of patches that we'll put in there. So you can see how I'm kind of now using that to find an area to replace it with. Okay, so it's really kind of like almost like a collage tool, but not the best. So there we go there. Notice how it keeps the color there. So I can go, if I select this area, there we go there. So it's kind of selected that area as where it's going to get the detail or the texture from, but it still kept the color of the surrounding area. So it's pretty clever. And again, you could probably use this for certain, if you had certain things you wanted to do. So let's say you had a giant building, skyscraper or something, and you wanted to replace some of the windows, but you wanted to make sure the colors were the same. You like that it was a uniform color in that building, but you had a different image over here you wanted to use. Well, then that's where you'd use this one. So you'd select that part of the skyscraper or the post you want to get rid of, find the new image you want to replace it with, and then this will automatically kind of keep that color in there as well, which is pretty cool beans. All right, so there we go there. So let's zoom back out a bit. All right, so my photo is obviously a little bit destroyed, but let's talk about getting rid of this guy. All right, I don't want him there anymore. It's kind of ruining my photo a little bit because, you know, it's kind of, well, and so it's a giant eye on his arm, let's face it, but I'm just trying to frame this a bit better. Now, I could crop it out, right? So I could kind of just get here and kind of crop that guy out altogether. Okay, but then we've kind of lost the proportions of that photo, so I don't really want to do that. I want to kind of get rid of him. So I'm going to show you the long way to do that today, and then I'm going to show you the quick way tomorrow. So let me just reset this image. Just going to revert back. There we go. Okay, so let's get rid of him. So we can do it a couple of ways. So let's have a look at some of these tools here to do that. All right, let's zoom in a bit. Now again, I'm showing you the manual way today, and tomorrow I'm going to show you the automatic way. So first up, we want to kind of get rid of this guy here. So we can try a couple of tools to do that. The first one I think we could probably try is let's try the healing brush. Let's see what happens if we start to use that on him. All right, not a great deal. Looks like I've just smashed his kneecap in, right? Because what this is trying to do is trying to heal that area, not replace that area. So no good with that brush. Okay, let's try this one. So let's select an area. Let's say the grass. And then I'll start to paint. Okay. And that's doing an okay job. But again, you'll notice that what it's trying to do is it's trying to keep the colors of the pants in there. So it's still kind of dark. Okay. As I start to kind of go through there, it's starting to work a bit better. All right. As long as I obviously select areas that suit. Okay. So if I go up here, I can start to kind of get rid of him a bit better. Okay. So that's kind of manually doing it that way. But you're going to find this will blur you a little bit as well. All right, so let's try one other tool that I haven't shown you, and that is this one down here. Okay, this is the clone stamp. So what this does is, again, kind of similar to that patch tool before, where it selects an area. So if I press the Alt key, it selects an area, and then it allows you to start to draw with that. Okay, but I find this one gives me a little bit more control. It's got a nicer fall off as well. So I'm just going to select over here and paint. And you will notice that it follows. So if you have a look at that crosshair, it's following where I'm going. So eventually it'll kind of go over the areas I'm trying to get rid of. All right, so you can see I'm just kind of like painting this out. And you want to make sure that you don't get those kind of repetitive issues. So make sure you go back and kind of change a couple of things as well, so it kind of blends in a little bit better. All right, so I'm just kind of clicking, moving. So you can see there I went too high up, so I got the actual top of the photo, which is why I kind of did that hard mask there. All right, oops, I don't want to do that, I don't like that. All right, and this grass will fix that up. So again, okay, I'll grab some grass from here and kind of draw that in. Now you notice the brush I'm using here has what's called a bit of a fall off there, so you can kind of see it's got that soft edge, which is why it's kind of blurring in, which is really nice. That's what you kind of want to do, because it'll help you kind of hide those corners. There we go. And you can see we've got this kind of repetitive area where we've got that grass coming through twice, or 3 times actually, because it's come from there. So what I would do is I would go in and kind of get rid of a few of those so it doesn't stand out as much. You don't want it to look like it's been, well, photoshopped, right? All right, cool. and then we'll zoom back. And there you go. So I think I would probably go back and spend a bit more time fixing this area up here. I think that's a bit harsh. It hasn't got a nice fall off into that grass. So what we would do there is I would probably use this kind of patch tool, and I would select this area, and then I'd see if I can move it. Actually, oops, I did it the wrong way around. So I'm going to select this area here. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of move it. See if I can find it nice blending. That's not bad. Okay, see how it automatically blended it for us? If I kind of zoom out a bit, it's still a little bit harsh there, that line. So we'll go back and we'll use two more tools here. We've got a blur and a smudge tool. So I might just I just want to blur that line a bit. I just think that line was just a little bit harsh. We just kind of gave it away. So the blur tool will just slowly kind of blur that through. So I just want to blend it in a bit more. There we go. And we'll zoom back out. And there, guys, gone. Okay, so it's as simple as that. All right, so we've used a bunch of tools there. I'll recap them really, really quickly, and then I'm going to let you have a go at doing this yourself. Okay, so grab one of your photos that you've already got and see if you can't just get rid of that person. So just to recap, what I did was I went into Window, went to my workspace, put on photography, which made all these tools kind of front and center. And then if we go for the tools again, we had the spot healing brush, which is good for little small things. So spot healing is great for, well, doing a spot. So let's get rid of that little spot there. Gone. Okay, you can see my crosshair was too big there. So you don't want to work with such a really massive one, a smaller one. There we go. That's your spot healing tool. This one here we talked about, basically you use a reference point. So something like that. And then you kind of use that as the reference. Okay, and it tries to automatically match the color and the light for you. And then we have our patch tool, which allows us to use a selection like that, and then pick another area, and it will kind of place that area over it, but keep the colors and the shading of the surrounding area. So really good for replacing billboards and text and those kind of things without messing up the photo. So there's those ones. And then finally, there was the clone brush, okay, where we use the clone stamp to pick an area and then use that to kind of paint with that area as well. And that is all you need. So those should be enough tools to easily be able to Photoshop, well, most photos, get rid of people, and start to kind of work with them. Now, one thing that's important as well, I didn't do it here, but I'll mention it, is you can see down here now, the trick was I was working on this one image. Okay, so now if I wanted to go back to some of those images, some of those changes I made, it's pretty hard now because I've made this as one complete image. I've kind of flattened the image. Other thing you can do, and what I would recommend doing before you go and do exactly what I've done there, so I'm just going to revert this again, so F12 to revert. What I would do is I would duplicate your layer. Okay, that's just popped up on my other screen. I'll move it across. Okay, and then I would work on that. So I still have the original deer there. And so that allows me to do things like, so let's just say I was doing some edits. I'm going to go to my clone brush here. I'm going to get rid of this, like that, right? And I went a little bit too far and I decided I really didn't like it. Okay, but I've gone too far. I can't undo anymore. By having that original there and in the exact same spot, if I hit the eraser, I can kind of rub areas out, right? So I can go back to what's under it. So I'd recommend doing that as well. Make sure you make a duplicate copy. So you just right click your image and duplicate, and I would work off that layer. You might even want to kind of hide that layer so you can't accidentally mess around with it. And that way you've got a bit of a backup to go as well. All right, so that's it. And then finally, of course, file save. Now, if you save it as a Photoshop file, you'll save all your layers and all your effects. But if you want to get it ready for printing, all you do is file, export as PNG is most popular now, but if you do export save for web, I'll bring that across so you can see it on my screen. This allows you to save your image in a variety of formats and qualities. So you can see here, there's my resolution. At the moment, it's only 162 kilobytes. If I wanted to drop that down, I can drop it down to low. You can see the distortion there, but it's 50 kilobytes. So it's kind of showing you your different options to save the image and what kind of quality you're going to get. And you can also change your image sizes here as well and percent sizes. So if you were working for a newsletter or the web and you need a certain size, you can kind of scale it down there. All right, so that's it for this little mini lesson. So like I said, what I want you to do now for the next half an hour is find some photos and see if you can't use those tools that we just chatted about and see how you go. And tomorrow, what we're going to do is I'll open it up to any questions for any of the work that you did. So feel free to use the chat and I'll read those before we start. and I'll help you out with any of your questions, any technical things that you may have come across and things you found really challenging. And then I'm going to show you a couple of the automated tools to do this for you automatically, which sometimes work really good, sometimes not so good. So that's why I haven't shown you straight away. So manual first, automatic later. So that's it. So have a go. Let me know how you go for the next half an hour, and I'll be good. And I'll catch you all tomorrow. So I'm just going to end the stream, and I will see you and your amazing photos tomorrow. Goodbye.